Listen Up with Jim Potts. Listen up, business owners, CFOs, human resource managers, and all managers and supervisors. Jim Potts is answering and addressing your questions and concerns, helping you stay out of court. Furthermore, please be advised that Jim's answers are not legal advice and are only intended as a guide based on his years of experience. The phone lines are open. 1-855-4-J-POTS. That's 1-855-457-6887. You can also email us at listenup@jameswilliampottsllc.com. Ready to listen up? Here is Jim Potts.
Jim Potts back on the air. Hey, you know what? That last segment sure did stir up some things. I can tell you that. You know, when I got off the air, I'm not only being blasted by people here in the room with me about different issues about the race card, but in addition to that, we of course received a number of emails, some pro, some con, regarding this whole issue about the race card. I can always tell the people that may be of the same ethnic background that I am that aren't too happy about, bringing up the fact that I'm downplaying the race card and that there are people out there that are racist and yama yama yama. I get it. I'm not denying any of that. Those are things that people do. So no way, shape, or form am I discounting those possibilities. So let's just clarify that. Then on the other side of the coin, I get those who are very supportive of that, who in fact feel that is the way things are sometimes. So look, there's got to be a happy medium in the middle someplace. So let's just leave it at this. People that are not part of a minority group, be a little bit more understanding, and those of you that are part of a minority group, understand and be a little bit more understanding on the other side, that everything that happens doesn't necessarily mean that it's because it's who you are. All right? So let's stop being a little bit paranoid. All right, here we go. Today we're going to be talking about tips for managers, for managing employees. So look, you got to understand that employees are the single greatest expense that most companies have, but they can also be a company's greatest asset if they are managed correctly. We are nothing without our employees, period. I wouldn't be able to take a vacation. I wouldn't be able to take a day off. I wouldn't be able to leave early or even go to lunch if it wasn't for my staff, which is a great staff, by the way. There's tons of seminars and books that are devoted to talking about how pep talks and incentives can help employees to become more motivated and contribute ideas freely. However, pep talks and incentives will not work for every employee and will not help you with managing employees that are already motivated but have some outlandish attitude about even being there on the job. So, look, some of them come up with some very good ideas. Some of them are kind of outlandish as well. Sometimes you have to separate those things out, and because you don't want to discourage anybody from bringing up ideas. Some employees even have a suggestion box, which I personally have never been a favorite of, because suggestion boxes, anytime somebody's suggestion doesn't get accepted, then you got a morale issue because they look at how my idea was ignored. So I don't know. Some businesses, I think that they've worked very successfully. I'm not an advocate necessarily of that program. One of the biggest motivation killers is micromanagement, by the way. All right. Now look, no one wants to have someone looking over their shoulders and gauging their every move. So micromanaging may impinge on an employee's creativity and put a damper on their motivation. Giving employees a little freedom to do things their way may have an incredibly liberating effect. Employees always want to complain about a micromanager. That manager is probably somebody who reports to somebody else that wants to make sure the job is getting done. So let's be a little bit understanding about that. So as a manager, do you want your boss always looking over your shoulder? And the answer is no. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't certain employees who need that, but that's certainly not every employee. And if you've got the personality of a micromanager, you're probably doing that with every employee, whether they need help or not, because you're paranoid that they're not going to be doing the job correctly, and it's ultimately going to fall on your shoulders. I get it. You don't want your job on the line as well. But look, I don't want to say pick and choose, because you've heard me also talk about to be fair, firm, and consistent. Is what I am saying is that there are certain employees that may need a little bit more assistance than others. Your job as a manager is to differentiate between the two. And if you're a micromanager, ease up a little bit. All right? You may actually get more productivity out of an individual. Now, the second area to watch out for is to keep the focus on the goals. Sometimes the present moment and the drivers for a project will cloud an employee's judgment about the best course of action. These pressing needs may also burden an employee and take up their attention and energy. Reminding employees of the ultimate goal can actually help them to see that their ideas is not going to work to achieve the ultimate goal, and may also serve to remind them that the issues of the present will pass. So look, it's all about staying focused. I tell managers and supervisors all the time when I'm doing the seminars on sexual harassment, and we talk about some of the other protected categories, that you've got to stay focused. Help the employees stay goal-oriented. Don't let them shift off the path, because if they shift off the path, then it's going to end up being another issue. And that is, you probably end up writing them up because of the fact that they're not performing up to your standards. So whatever you do, help them stay on track. If you're noticing that they're starting to stray a little bit, get them back on track. Now, the employee might call that micromanaging. All right? So what you have to show them is that, no, I'm not micromanaging. I'm helping you to stay on the course so that you keep the focus on the ultimate goal of what needs to be accomplished here. All right. And the other thing I tell them is that when you're dealing with goals, you have to remember what goal you've given them. Don't, because you get under the gun on another project and all of a sudden now you shift some things over to that person that throws them off time-wise, and now that other goal is not being met. So remember, it's up to you to keep your eye focused on the goals as well, and to keep your eye on the ball. All right. Just remember, every time you point a finger at somebody, you got three pointing back at you. All right? Watch out for your biases. This one is critical, in my opinion. Last week, what did we talk about? We talked about the fact that the race card issue. And I tell managers sometimes that they got to look within themselves as well. So you should know what your biases are. So everyone has a unique perspective with different values and motivations. So it can be tough to see when your own biases are clouding your judgment. In some cases, employees' ideas may be perfectly plausible, but the whole thought process and journey to each goal is so different from the way you think that it is tough to see how it will work. Allow the employees to thoroughly explain their ideas before making a decision about whether or not to try it. Don't just cut them off. Some of the seminars that we offer, I have anytime the word listen appears in the printed material, I always have the managers circle that word. Why? Because that's a failing, in my opinion, of managers and supervisors. They don't always listen. You have to listen to your employees. You may actually learn something from listening to them. And that's just the way it is. I've had to learn how to do that myself. There's certain things that we were doing because a certain way. Why? Because this is the way that I've always done it. Well, the times are changing. You have a different thought process now. And, I found myself in the same situation I'm just telling you about. So what did I have to do? I had to start listening to what they were saying so we can make some changes, because the times were changes. Technology was a big one. And, this business about getting on the internet and doing all this, I'm old school, but hey, you know what? The times are changing. You got to be able to reach out to people now with the internet. You could do marketing on the internet, the whole 9 yards. And hey, the times are changing. So, pay attention to some of that. All right. Don't be so fixed that you don't listen. I know they got that expression, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, I don't agree with that. Yes, you can. All right, because I'm one of those old dogs that they taught some new tricks to. All right, let's put it that way. Okay, work with employees to set goals. Dictating goals to employees is almost as bad as micromanaging. Employees may feel that there's a better way to do things, and it can affect their perspective, productivity, and motivation. Sitting down with employees to set goals and giving them more ownership over a project and motivate them to come up with more ideas in the future. Sometimes, even if you don't actually use the ideas they come up with in the session. Listen, everybody likes to feel that they're contributing. All right? Give them some piece, okay, that you can say, you know what? I like that piece of it. I didn't like the whole idea, but this little small piece of it, I liked. All right? It makes them feel better. It's not going to shut them down for the future, and they will probably look at you in a different manner, and it probably respect you even more. All right. Follow up on projects. All right, is another one, and provide feedback. Here's the problem with feedback. Think about it, Mr. Manager or Miss Manager out there. When do you normally give feedback? I can tell you when you give it. When something went wrong. When something went wrong. Why'd you do it that way? Listen, you got to give positive feedback as well as negative feedback. If you have to give somebody negative feedback, always try to leave some little piece, all right, of what they did right till the end, because that way you can come back and say, you know what? Even though we had to talk about these other things, I do want to compliment you on the way that you handled whatever it may have been, so that the discussion does not end on a negative, but in fact it ends on a positive. All right, so kind of keep that in mind. Just a little handy thing to do, and I tell you, that will go a long way with your employees. Okay, now I want to turn my attention for a second here into performance evaluations. Look, these performance evaluations, they've got to be done correctly. The issue is that if you turn around and don't do a performance evaluation properly, and on a scale of 1 to 10, you know this particular person is going to be, very aggressive towards you, very upset, and you don't want to deal with their personality. Here's what ends up happening. You give them a review that's not an accurate review. You let them know that they're golden, everything is fine. Now, the person ends up getting terminated for something down the road because you had no choice but to finally terminate them. And now plaintiff's attorney, what's the first thing he or she is going to do? They're going to turn around and get a copy of the personnel file. They get a copy of the personnel file, and now here in the personnel file, it said Jim was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and now all of a sudden you're firing Jim because he couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time. Those two things are so totally inconsistent that they then look for another reason why you may have fired a person. Let's go back to the race card issue. Person, and let's just say it was a minority. Person walks into the attorney's office, says, they fired me because I'm black. Okay, we get her and get the personnel file. It says the work was great. If the work was great, there must have been a reason why you let him go. It must be because it's like Jim said. So that's why you want to make sure that performance evaluations are accurate. Some employers don't even like doing them, but they're a good tool. They don't always have to be about money. All right, it could be simply, I need to keep you on track. Here's a performance evaluation to let you know what you're doing right and where you need to make some corrections in the performance of your responsibilities. All right, with that last comment, it's time to close out this segment, but let me remind you, you can also hear us on Facebook at Listen Up and subscribe to us on iTunes. Just search for Listen Up with Jim Potts. And as a reminder, we take calls every third Friday from about 9:15 to 10:45, and we can be reached at 855-4J-POTS or 855-457-6887. Or you can email us at listenup@jameswilliampottsllc.com. All right, I'm Jim Potts. I will continue to fight the fight. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for being a part of Listen Up with Jim Potts. We take your calls every third Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for your questions and concerns. Call us at 1-855-4J-POTS. That's 1-855-4J-POTS. Again, that's every third Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time at 1-855-4J-POTS. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on iTunes, and link up with us on LinkedIn. You can also email us at listenup@jameswilliampottsllc.com. Until next time, make it a great week.